welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a foundation review video on 3 foundations that I have. All 3 are new, actually, and all 3 are kind of on the pricier side. Some are like exceptionally pricey and some are pretty mid-range pricey, but I had initially 2 of them I was going to review, and then the third one came in the mail like a week or a week and a half ago, so I had enough time to really begin testing it, and so I figured I'd throw it in here as well. So let me start, trying to think if I should start from, I think I'm going to start from like least favorite and work my way up to most favorite. Okay. First is the La Mer Soft Fluid Longwear Foundation. Now I've used La Mer products here and there. I don't use a ton of La Mer skincare. I've used more of their makeup products. I love the La Mer powder, but they have released a new one. So they discontinued the old La Mer powder and they came out with a new one. I believe it's like it's similar, but it is, I heard that it's more expensive but for less product. But I've tried that, which I love, and their bronzer, which I picked up, the limited edition bronzer just from this past summer, and absolutely stunning. So I was really excited when they launched this foundation, and I was like, I've got to get my hands on it, and I got the shade Cream 03. So the chart that they give you online, it was like cool, warm, neutral. I like to be more yellow, or more neutral. My skin is very pinkish, so I like to be more yellow to kind of counteract that. So I went for Cream 03, which was a good match. It actually was a tad bit light, so it was like a good shade. It wasn't too dark, it wasn't too light, it was more on the lighter side, so I could have worn like a bronzer over it or something. So, every time I'm like starting, I have to kind of talk about things I'm not really fond of. I'm always like, where do I start? I had really high hopes for this foundation, especially because I had read so many great reviews and I had watched so many great YouTube videos about it, and people were like, this stuff is amazing. It's like holy grail status. You know, I received a sample, or I've been trying it, you know, for a week, or it's just, I know I'm going to love this foundation forever and ever. And I was like, ooh, I'm so excited. And I was like, it came in the mail at like 4:30 in the afternoon. I ran into my bathroom, turned on the light, got out a brush, 'cause I hadn't put any makeup on that day, and I like put it on. And that was all I wore. I like didn't put any other makeup on, but I was like, I gotta get this on my face. And I wore like, I used my regular buffing brush, like a, you know, regular buffing foundation brush. And it was, you know, kind of like pulling on certain dry patches, and it was kind of falling into my pores. I was trying to like buff it out a little bit more. So I was like, okay, I probably applied too much. Let me give it the benefit of the doubt. So the next day I tried it, and I tried my Artist Oval 8 brush, which if I put pretty much any foundation I can put with that, I can like salvage it with that brush because it's like velvet. It's stunning. So I'm buffing it in and it's looking okay. So I was like, let me give it a few minutes to settle, and that kind of helped. It definitely had pretty decent coverage. The color was a really great match for me. But as the day wore on, it began to still look a little patchy on my skin. Like I could see it on my skin definitely. And it was breaking up in certain parts, and it just was kind of breaking down on my skin. So I was like, okay, I got one more try left. Let me go for the top, you know, application of all, which is the Beauty Blender. So I got out my Beauty Blender and I was like, okay, we are going to make this work. So I'm like bouncing it on my skin with the Beauty Blender, and it's going on nicely. It's shearing it out and it's making it look really nice. And I was like, okay, that's right. I need to find my groove. I have some foundations like that. Like I have to apply them with certain products or certain applicators or brushes or sponges, and then I love it. And you know, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay like working around the foundation, especially if it works really well for me at the end of the day. So right about 4, 5, 6 hours later, I was at Starbucks and I looked in the mirror and I was like, I mean, I could really see it on my skin, and it was starting to break down again, and it was starting to be very oily. oil was starting to break through, and it just was looking very makeup-y on my skin. And then the next day I set it with a La Mer powder, and it kind of really did the same thing. Like, the devastation is really, I mean, I'm exaggerating. The disappointment I felt was so strong because, like, when people build up something and you really want to be part of that crowd, I was like, oh, I really want to be part of the group that really loves it. And I just wasn't. I was, like, over here in left field, as I am with a lot of, like, very popular products that, like, people love it, and I'm all, like, over here, like, And it doesn't, I mean, I still love a lot of, like I said, the La Mer powder is fantastic. I'm really curious to try their concealer. This just didn't work for me. And I'm going to be returning it. I mean, you can't even see that we used like one pump per time. So, but I'm going to be returning it because I can't even like salvage it somehow. And that's really disappointing. So, but here's the thing. Sometimes you just gotta try it yourself. So, I don't know. Maybe you'll have better luck than I did. But I was it didn't work for me. But I know a lot of people that said that it did work for them. And I have combination skin, and people that have dry skin have been saying they loved it. People that have oily skin have said they loved it. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just my face. All right, moving on. I've gone on enough about it. The Guerlain Lingerie Depot. And this is the new... Oh, stop! Elmo's barking. And he's like barking at nothing because he's in the corner here. Okay, this is the new reformulation of the Lingerie Depot, which I already was a huge fan of the first one. I have in the shade 00N, so more neutral. Now, the thing with the original Lingerie Depot is it worked beautifully for my skin. However, it oxidized to like a whole other... Stop. My goodness, he is going crazy. He does not like this foundation, but I do. And it would oxidize to like a whole shade deeper. So I ended up having to give it to my mom. She's a little bit darker than I am. Her complexion, she can go one shade up in foundation. So that's why I stopped using it, because the formula was beautiful. So the formula felt a little bit drier than the original Lingerie Depot. I remember the original Lingerie Depot being a very kind of creamy emollient foundation, and it kind of gave this fresh radiance to the skin. This is a little bit drier. So I did find that my skin had to be well exfoliated and well hydrated before putting it on. But I could get it on with a buffing brush. I could get it on with a beauty blender, my Artist Oval 8 brush. Like, all of them worked pretty well. The color was a great match. Definitely the most coverage out of all three. So I was able to sheer it out a lot. Just like all I needed was a little bit to cover my whole face, and it really gave beautiful coverage. I found that I just needed a little bit of powder through my T-zone, but just make sure that if you have any dry patches, like, everything is well moisturized and, you have exfoliated. But other than that, I mean, it performed so well. I didn't find it really breaking down. Like I said, a little bit of oil breakthrough throughout my T-zone, but nothing that significant. And the thing that I loved about this, though, was the flawless kind of airbrushed finish that it gave the skin. And that's what I remember from the first one, and that's what I remember from this one. So really happy and enjoying this one. The final one is the Sisleya Sisleya Anti-Aging Foundation. I have it in the shade 0.0B. Yeah, I also have this one as 1B, but I like 0B better. Though I can mix them and it kind of gives the perfect blend. But the 0B works pretty well for me. Now, I haven't tried any Sisley face makeup yet, so I can't compare it to the other formulas. But this is from their Sisleya. It's their kind of premier anti-aging skincare line. So this is infused. This is a skincare-based foundation. I've talked before, if you've been following my blog for a while, I'm such a big fan of skincare-based foundations. I always say that they give that kind of fused with the skin look. They tend to look less makeup-y, and that is exactly my experience with this. So this is, it's actually oil-free as well, but I found that it had a really great, it has much more of a serum-y, kind of liquidy texture. The Guerlain is a little bit thicker. The La Mer is similar in texture to this, but this definitely has like a slip. So it glides on the skin, it doesn't settle in anything, it doesn't cling to any dry patches, for me at least. And so I had tried this, and it gives you, immediately after I put it on, it's very dewy. And I was like, oh, I don't know, like, and then I let it, before I like went in with the powder, I always tend to overreact. I always overreact with foundation or makeup in general. I'm like, oh, that's too dark, too this, too that. And I have to remember, like, just give myself a few seconds to get used to it or let it settle. And that was the case with this. It settled after about like a minute or two. It still looked dewy, but it gave me that, like, I just had a facial, fresh skin look. So beautiful. And I tried it without powder, because I always test all foundations without powder first, because I need to know my oiliness factor. And then I add in a primer, or I don't wear a lot of primers though. I mean, obviously if you guys watch my tutorials, you see I hardly ever wear primers. But more powders, or if I need to put like my mattifying Murad oil-free mattifying lotion underneath. But I like to test it out without anything first. And I went to Starbucks in the afternoon. It's kind of like my little daily routine. I'll like hit up Starbucks at around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And I had to go to the bathroom, so I like went in there, and I'm like all up in the mirror, like looking at my skin. And it looked like I had just had a facial, but I had makeup on. That is how undetectable this makeup is. But I mean, it covers, like, there's no redness. Everything looks flawless. My pores look very minimized. Like, there's some foundations that, like, you can still see, it doesn't have like that blurring property. This had like more of like a blurring property to it, where everything looked very, very minimized and very flawless. Even more so than the Guerlain. And it just was absolutely beautiful. I was able to get by without powder, which was surprising because it does give like a fresh face look. But I was able to get by without powder. Though I had another day that I wore it that I was exceptionally oily. You know, like I can never tell what my skin's going to do. Some days it acts one way, some days it'll act another way. So that day I needed to add some powder midday. But I had been wearing it and wearing it and wearing it and trying to see if I have like an off day with it. That's why I like to like catch these foundations. I'm like, oh, I have an off day with you. And just to try to determine what caused that off day, and if someone else would have that, maybe they have a certain type of skin type and they would, you know, maybe have that experience. No off days with this. I had 1 or 2 off days with the Guerlain in the beginning before I was able to figure out just how much to apply, because it's very little. And then my La Mer, it was just like every day was an off day. It was so upsetting. So this was my favorite. It really, really was. I just thought it was exceptional. And I mean, it is an exceptional high price point. So I kind of was hoping it would be exceptional. I was hoping La Mer was going to be as exceptional as well because of the price point, and it just didn't do it for me. So those are my thoughts on all 3 of these new launches, and I would love to know if you've tried any of these and what your experience is. Let me know your skin type, and then if you've tried it and what your experience has been, because like I said, I see a lot of people commenting and saying that the La Mer is really working for them. So I think that's important, you know, to hear both sides. Like, some people had good experience, some people maybe had a bad experience. So I'd love to hear if you tried any of these and what your experience was, and then your skin type, so people can kind of use it as a reference. So I hope this was helpful, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care. Bye-bye.